in on my bizarre prank emails, and now I've admitted that on live television. Now they know. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 4 p.m. on Thursday. My name is Anthony John Agnello. I am not only a person who sends prank emails to Anheuser-Busch, I am the community manager here for Joystiq.com. And today for Joystiq Streams, we have a very, very special treat. Jessica Lynn Condit is going to be playing TowerFall, but joining us for this stream is none other than Matt Thorson, the creator of TowerFall. Hello, Matt.
Hey.
How are you doing today?
I'm really good.
So TowerFall, this is TowerFall Ascension that we are playing. Now, TowerFall has a little bit of a thorny history, right? TowerFall started as an Ouya exclusive, right?
Yeah, it did.
And so this is an expanded version of TowerFall that is playable on PC and PlayStation 4 this week. What is different about this version of TowerFall compared to the original?
Oh man, so much. Well, there's the quest mode is the obvious one, which is like the 1 or 2 player co-op mode. But versus mode has a ton of new stuff. Like there's like 50 new levels, a ton of new variants, 4 new characters, like 5 new power-ups. Basically everything is like better.
Everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even like the just basic gameplay is like more balanced and refined.
Cool. And
so, Jess, Jess, you reviewed TowerFall for Joystiq.
I did.
And
oh, cool! That was you.
Yeah, that was me.
and you liked it quite a bit. What are we going to be looking at when you fire it up right now?
Well, in the review, I mentioned both modes. The Versus mode, which I played with friends, and I highly recommend it. But I have no friends except for puppies with me right now. So we will be playing the Quest mode. And this is for 1 to 2 archers. And so that's kind of like the solo campaign, I guess, of the game.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, if it were said to have one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I think, just as enjoyable. It's way hard, Matt. Jeez.
It's pretty hard.
It's really hard.
I'll be the first to admit.
I mean, don't be looking for tips on how to play this game when I jump into it. I'm bad. So, yeah, but it's fun. And I think we should be able to show some of the Versus mode too, because I do have 2 controllers hooked up. So we can just like take a look at it, see what it looks like, but I mean, I'll be fighting nothing. So,
okay.
But this is the quest mode right here, and this is on my account. I played the game on Joystiq, so I have a few things to still unlock and beat.
Oh,
cool.
So what do you think? Maybe start at the beginning?
Yeah,
that sounds
I'm still
good.
gonna lose, but I will start here.
We will begin at the beginning of all things.
Matt, any tips before I jump in?
Do you play on hardcore or normal?
Oh, normal. Are you kidding? Have you heard anything I've said?
I guess my tip is don't die.
Don't die. Jeez, man. All right. I'll try that this time.
Matt, I'm very curious about the origins of TowerFall. TireFall. That is
TireFall would be
TireFall's the driving sequel.
Yeah. It's like the Cruising USA inspired sequel.
God, that would be awesome. A sit-down cabinet. There's like a bow and arrow in there. So yeah, tell me about where the game came from. Tell me about, when you got the initial idea for it, and where did TowerFall begin?
TowerFall started at a game jam, which is like a bunch of game developers in one room, and you all have 48 hours to make a game. And the original prototype of TowerFall was like a really simple single-player Flash game where you're an archer climbing a tower, and it was kind of like Zelda-inspired, except I prototyped the bow first, and the bow and arrow was just so much fun that I stopped adding weapons.
That's cool.
Yeah,
And
pretty much the
correct.
only thing that survived from that version is how the arrows work. Everything else is different.
Yeah, how often does that happen for you? When you're making a game, how often do you create something, just the tiniest little thing where it just works, like the bow and arrow, where you're like, this is it. That's all I need. I love it. Yeah,
it's totally like when I'm making games, it tends to be like little things like that get me excited, like something that just moves in a really cool way, or just like it sort of makes my brain just like start running with the possibilities of like all the different level designs that can make it interesting and stuff like that.
So how did it? Tell me about the sort of genesis of the complete game that you started working after that 48-hour game jam.
Yeah, so I tried single-player stuff for a while, but it never really worked that well. And eventually I just prototyped multiplayer because I'd been thinking about multiplayer for years, but never really had an outlet for it. And the multiplayer was just immediately fun. Like, it just overshadowed the single-player like completely. So
why do you think that is? Why was the single-player just not working out?
Yeah, I think one reason the multiplayer works so well is just because I'd been thinking about it for so long. Like, not even in the context of TowerFall, but just like I played so much Smash Bros. And Team Fortress 2 and just multiplayer games, and I've never really designed a multiplayer game until now. Yeah, so I just had like all this like build up of inspiration, I guess.
This is such a good multiplayer game. I mean, it makes sense completely. It feels like, yeah, you set out to make a multiplayer game. So that's really interesting that it just kind of happened.
Yeah, it was really a thing where the game felt like it wanted me to go that direction, and I just had to. Like, I resisted for a while and kept trying to make single player as well, and then eventually the multiplayer was just so much better that like quest mode is back now, but this quest mode that you see is like way different than how it was originally, and this quest mode is pretty much based on the multiplayer.
Well, how did the original quest mode go? You know, in an alternate universe, when you kept going down that hole and you forced TowerFall to be something it didn't want to be, what would it have been? What would it have been?
There was like an overworld that you could walk around on, and there was like you would walk around to different towers, and then the towers were like a survival thing where you'd like climb up, and your arrows were persistent like they are now, but between levels, and you only had a few lives to get to the top of the tower. You fight a boss. And then when you kill the boss, the tower collapses, which is kind of where the name TowerFall came from.
So did it have a story? Like, was there a big narrative in it or anything?
Not really. I don't really think about narrative that much when I make games, to be honest. Right. I don't know why.
Well, this one doesn't need it. I mean, not at all. So, oh man, I died. No. Matt, how am I doing so far, huh?
You're doing pretty good. You beat the first level like really quickly.
I'm fascinated by that statement that, you know, you didn't want to fight against what the game wanted to be.
Yeah.
What do you need to do as a game designer to make sure that you are paying attention to that moment? How do you make sure that you're aware of, you know, when a game needs to change rather than trying to keep some idea that you're just committed to from getting in the way?
It's really difficult. It's like one of the hardest parts, I think. You need to do a lot of testing. You need to observe players playing the game and just see like what they naturally try to do, not what you're trying to get them to do, that kind of stuff. And just pay attention to what's fun. And it feels like you have to kind of take your ego out of it as much as you can. Because you have these ideas of what you want the game to be that a lot of times it's just not going to work.
Can you tell when another developer has made a game but like forced stuff into it?
Name names.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I can't think of any offhand, but I feel like I have.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen that, yeah. Where it just feels, I guess, kind of self-indulgent. I don't know.
Interesting.
There is a lot of talk here in the chat. Gwill Harrison and others are just saying that they adore the animation, they really like the pixel look, and I am a huge pixel graphics fan, and it's funny. Like I look at recent entries in sort of big, you know, mainstream games from big publishers, like recent Nintendo games, like Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds and Yoshi's New Island, which came out this year, and I look at them and I sort of lament the loss of the pixel graphics that they had once upon a time.
Yeah, Yoshi's New Island is like a huge opportunity to use that awesome art style again.
Right, and like, you know, nothing against that game. Like they made it very attractive, but you still look at like these polygons with admittedly nice textures on top of them, and you're like, oh, that's nice, but it's not as nice. Like, what draws you to this style?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure. I really like it as an aesthetic because I think, like, I guess I'm kind of nostalgic for it, but I try not to like play up the nostalgia aspect. I think it's more so it's low resolution enough that you can sort of abstract out the details and the player can fill in the blanks with their imagination. And that's really cool to me.
Yeah. Like the power of suggestion is so important to a game, I think.
Exactly.
You want to have that moment where the player is letting their brain fill in as many gaps as possible, because that makes the interaction so rich. Exactly.
And then that's all over TowerFall. Like, even in like the characters, how the characters don't really have backstories, they just have titles. And it's just there to like imply history without just telling the player everything, right?
I love the characters, by the way. Absolutely. Like you have a good balance of like you 2 girls, 2 guys. The prince is pink, which is lovely. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very cool. Even though they all do the same thing, they feel very different.
Yeah, it's just like to give the player some ownership, I guess.
Oh yeah, when I played with my friends, like they were getting into like yelling matches, like no, that's my guy, you can't beat him.
That's awesome.
It's very cool. Yeah,
that's perfect. I just want to shout out to like Pedro Medeiros did the pixel art, and he's amazing. And he did all the animations that we were talking about, and then Amora Bettany did the character concepts and designs.
Matt, who did the music? Was this you who composed the music?
The music is Al Coloca. He's actually my roommate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, cool.
He made Aquaria. He's working on Night in the Woods right now, actually.
Al made Aquaria, too?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, our managing editor, Susan Arndt, wanted to make a special note. Well, actually, the direct quote is good. She says, "Okay, have we mentioned how awesome this music is, by the way?" And now that I know that this is coming from the same mind as Aquaria, I can hear it.
Yeah.
Man, I love that game.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Vita port. Port.
You put that on your to-do list at the house?
Yeah.
That's actually, Matt, that's another question that's in my head. Is a little bit during the pre-show we were talking about TowerFall's, sort of life as an Ouya exclusive, and now it's definitely like in addition to all of the gameplay tweaks and new things that are here in Ascension, it's obviously also a big change that it's reaching such a much bigger audience. How did you decide what platforms you wanted TowerFall on?
Yeah, I always wanted it on Steam. Steam always seemed sort of like the end goal to me, even though it's a local multiplayer game. So a lot of PC players won't have a way to do that. But Steam always just seemed like an end goal. And then as far as consoles go, I knew I wanted on a console. I wasn't sure who to go with, but Sony was just like amazing to work with for like just being really proactive in helping me figure out a way to port it to PS4 and making it really comfortable.
That's a reputation that Sony has very much fostered in the past 24 months at this point. They've sort of reimagined themselves as 15 years ago, Sony was the biggest of the big publishers. The PlayStation 2 was, that was video games to a lot of the world. And, in the months since Sony released the PS Vita, which was 2 years ago in February, at least here in the US, and the PlayStation 4, they've recreated themselves as sort of the champion of independent developers. Why do you think they've become so interested in fostering relationships with developers like yourself?
Yeah, I'm not sure at like a company-wide level, but I know that just individual people in the company are just really passionate about indie games. So that probably plays a big role in it. As far as like business strategy goes, I'm not sure.
How did they, help facilitate bringing TowerFall to the PlayStation 4?
They set up the porting studio, which is Sickhead Games down in Dallas. They like set up that whole deal, and they like mediated between us. Not that we needed, like, it was a really smooth porting process, but they just really helped keep everyone on top of everything, They sort of functioned as like producers, I guess, is what it was. And then they just helped with me just figuring out all the kinds of things, because launching a console game is just complicated. like there's like TRCs, like you have to like adhere to like all these guidelines and stuff to be on a console, and they just really helped me like figure out all that stuff.
So for those following the chat and watching along with us here in the stream, can you go into a little bit of detail, because it's sometimes it's a little bit impenetrable to say, oh well, getting a game on a console is more difficult than putting it out on PC, and I think that some people might not have familiarity with the rules that you were talking about. What are some of the things that you wouldn't have had to think about if this was never going to be on PlayStation, then that you did?
So, like, I guess it's all just because a PlayStation or Xbox is like a more closed system where they curate a lot more. Like they want it to be like a complete experience where the player doesn't really see like the holes or the seams, whereas Steam is sort of just like a free-for-all in a lot of ways. And so there's stuff like you have to get ESRB rated. You have to, like, when the game starts up, it has to show that icon of like, this game autosaves. If you see this icon, don't turn the game off. It has to like, there's a lot of, they do internal testing, and like if there's any bugs, like they won't let it in, that kind of thing. Yeah.
The small, them small took, them sail took.
Them's all took.
Them's all took. Thank you. Every now and again, I start to try and parse the names of people in the chat, and I sound like my grandmother. Like, it's the grandma. The word is the.
No.
Yeah. Them's all took was mentioning that the crystal laser thing looks brutal, and it does. I don't even need to have a controller or a keyboard in my hands to know that like that is tricky. Yeah. What's the secret to making enemies?
Oh, to designing enemies? I think I was just sort of thinking of enemies that resulted in the player doing interesting movements. Like that enemy, when you kill him, he shoots a bunch of lasers in 4 directions. So basically you want to either shoot him or jump on him, and then you instantly have to like dodge to catch the arrow so it doesn't kill you.
He's awful. No.
And it's really hard too.
He is.
So it's like just something that feels really good when you do it right, I guess.
Pure Monkey in the chat is someone who's joined us and missed the moment where you were talking about TowerFall's origins at a 48-hour game jam. Something I'm kind of fascinated by game jams, because I find that when you have restrictions placed on the creative process, it forces you to make quick split decisions. You don't have time to sort of mull over, should I do this? Should I do that? What do you like? How does restricting yourself change the development process? What do you come up with, when you're in a game jam that you don't think you would otherwise if just left to your own creative whims?
Yeah, I think the important part about restrictions or constraints is that they focus me. So I'll just get a lot done, even if it's not the stuff that'll be final in the game. It just gets me trying stuff and experimenting. And experimenting is the most important part of game design for me, I think. I guess another example of that is the variant system in this game, where you can just toggle on different options that change the game. That really let me just experiment with different game mechanics, and I didn't have to have like a whole game mode for them. I could just be like, oh, it might be cool if corpses exploded, and I can try it, and then if it works, I just put it in the game.
It works so good.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
I love it.
You know, Matt, we were talking about sort of the unusual process of trying to get a game onto a console and the many different less than liberating restrictions that you can run into in that process. Are there any other platforms that you would like to see TowerFall on in the future? A Discord 89 here in the chat was mentioned Vita as I did in terms of wanting to see Aquaria on a console. And yeah. I know that TowerFall can sort of be played on Vita by using
remote play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But are there any plans to bring it to the portable as a native release, or the Wii U? I know Nintendo is getting very ambitious in trying to reach out to indies and get them on their machines.
Yeah, I think I want as many people to play TowerFall as possible, obviously, and it seems like everyone wants it. I don't have any plans yet. Vita would be interesting. It would need like netcode or something to work, because you'd have because you can only play one player on each Vita, obviously. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to think about, but I'm just so focused on the Steam and PS4 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that it's something that you've had to address many times, that there's no online multiplayer for TowerFall. Mm-hmm. For those joining us here on the stream that don't know why there isn't online multiplayer, why go with something that is purely about the local multiplayer experience?
Yeah, the game was designed from the ground up for local multiplayer. That was always the intention. At one point in development, I had a decision point where I was I could work on online multiplayer and just see if it works. I had a feeling it wouldn't work, but I just could have tried. Or I could make quest mode, and I chose to make quest mode. I'm just not confident that I could make an online multiplayer experience that's as good as the rest of the game, pretty much. So I just chose not to do it. If I was ever confident that I could, I would try it, I think. But
why do you think at this point in time, the idea of local multiplayer used to be, it wasn't an idea that was diminished because it was omnipresent. It was everywhere you went. You were either in an arcade or you were playing video games on a machine that the only way you could play multiplayer is if somebody is sitting next to you. You mentioned the sort of inspiration of Smash Brothers before, and Smash Brothers, even Super Smash Brothers Brawl, is a game that really, really needs to be played by somebody sitting right next to you. But that's sort of faded. Why do you think it's so hard to convince people that it's still worth pursuing that it's worth, that having something that's only couch co-op is worth having?
Yeah, I think it's just because online has become so ubiquitous. People just expect it. A lot of people are surprised when they figure out there's not online multiplayer, because they're just well, of course it's online.
Right.
And so I think when you surprise people in that way, they just get kind of angry, it seems.
It seems. It's a very politic way to put it.
I had actually the opposite experience with, not to confuse anyone, but with Titanfall. When I found out there was no split screen local multiplayer, I was
I've heard that a lot too. Yeah.
So
I think local is by far my favorite way to play games still. Not that online games are bad, but I just have so many amazing memories with local games, and I just love playing games with my friends.
Yeah, I mean I am right there with you. Jess and I talk about video games professionally. This is what we do all day. We don't even make them. We just we talk about them. We dissect them. And I know that playing things online is something that I need to do professionally. If it wasn't something I needed to do professionally, I probably wouldn't do it at all. Yeah. I love local multiplayer. It's a lot more meaningful to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. And online communities, I think by default they are generally more toxic than like local communities. It's hard to grief people locally. It's like if you're griefing someone in TowerFall, it's probably hilarious. Like you guys are probably laughing as it's happening, right?
Right. Yeah, you never saw people like walk up to an arcade cabinet and like push all their quarters off of the Street Fighter 2 machine. Like, yeah, son, what now?
Yeah, if you do that, you're just a jerk. Like,
a interesting question from the chat. Nix G asked a little bit of a technical question. Can you tell us about the decision to make your own engine instead of using something like Unity or even Game Maker?
Yeah, it was really just Game Maker. I actually started making games in Game Maker when I was a kid. I love Game Maker, but I found I like kind of outgrew it, I guess. Like, where it was when I switched away from it, it just wasn't performing well enough for the things I wanted to make. And I just got used to, like, I'm a programmer. Like, I went to university for programming, and I just got used to having that level of control where, like, Unity is really cool. It's like a visual editor where you can make stuff in, like, a really playful way, which is really nice. But I'm just so used to, like, I'm creative when I'm looking at a screen of code, I guess, even though that's incredibly nerdy.
Another little bit of a nerdy question from Aslan Steve here in the chat. Are there any Easter eggs in the game that haven't been found yet? And he stresses, you don't have to tell us what they are, but do they exist? And I love the implication of that. Like, I want to find them. Just let me know if there's something to be looking for.
Right. There is one really difficult Easter egg, difficult to find, but I think it's been found by like one person on the Steam forums.
Wow.
There's a few things in the game, like in quest mode, there's a couple secret, like really secret levels that only a few people have found. You can earn gold skulls in quest mode, which I haven't told anyone how you do that, but it seems like people are starting to puzzle that out.
Dude, that is just mean.
Give me more.
I love it. I love that you put that in the most tantalizing, cruel way possible. Yeah, they're there. Not many people have figured out how to get them, though. Don't worry about it.
I love that kind of stuff in games. I love mystery in games, so I always try to put a lot in mine.
Well, what is your favorite mystery in games? What is the thing that, like, that sort of Easter egg or hidden level or thing that just sort of tweaked your brain? When I was a kid, I became obsessive about finding the keyhole exits in Super Mario World. I loved that more than anything in the world.
Yeah, that's still one of my favorites. I think Banjo-Kazooie, for some reason in my memory, stands out as having, but it had mysteries that were unsolvable. It had there was debug stuff left in the game that they just, instead of taking it out, they just made it look pretty and left it in. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it had areas that you could see but you couldn't reach. And actually one that stands out as well is in Smash Bros. Melee. I played that game for thousands of hours before I figured out it's possible to play as Master Hand.
Oh, yeah. And that
blew my mind.
That wasn't something that was widely known for a long time until after the game came out, right?
Yeah. I think it might have been a bug even.
I love that. You were talking about how you designed the characters to have an implied history, have this air of a past that you never need to explain. And having glitches in a game does wonders for that. You're like, oh my god, Master Hand is in here. What does that say about everything? And it just, it was an accident. Well, that's not very romantic, but it is.
It is kind of romantic in a different way, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Discord89 and was asking if you have any plans to add content later on through DLC, or if you have ideas for a sequel. I know that's rough. The game has just come out, and you're like, I just expanded it. But people People always want more, and you sound like a guy with a lot of ideas.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of ideas for TowerFall still. I don't want to give away the ideas for more levels and stuff because I feel like there'll be secret stuff that players will have to find. But I would like to do a level editor. I think that would be really cool.
Whew, God,
that would be insane.
And people would get. Jess, what kind of level would you make?
All brambles all the time. the things that grow on the levels and kill you instantly. Yeah.
Just cruel. Obviously, making a level editor is an incredibly challenging thing, and you have a programming background, and those sorts of challenges are your bread and butter. Pure Monkey wants to know, what was the hardest part about building your own engine? And sort of expanding upon that, what was the hardest part about building TowerFall?
I think being in charge of the programming and design is just like a really heavy weight to have on your shoulders sometimes. Like when there's a bug or just a problem with the game, it's like there's no one else to just it's just you, right? Like you just have to solve it, and that can be like really heavy when there's deadlines or stuff like that. I think that's probably the hardest part of programming and designing a game yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's all on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Succeed, though. But if you succeed, it's a pretty nice feeling, huh?
Exactly, yeah. It's like incredibly rewarding.
Cool.
I was just having one of those moments where I just got completely caught up in what Jess was doing. And I was like, jump off that wall! Jump off that wall! I love... We were talking about how wonderful the animation is. Remind me again, Matt, who was the individual who made your art and animation?
Pedro Medeiros. It's actually Pedro and Amora are both from Brazil, and so the team was technically an international team, I guess. Well, not technically. It was an international team. Yeah.
How did you guys hook up?
My other roommate, Chevy, just introduced us because I'd mentioned to him that I wanted to redo the art. Originally, it was all my art and it was terrible. And then he was friends with Pedro and Amora and he hooked me up with their emails. I actually saw their other game, which was on Ouya before TowerFall, called Deep Dungeons of Doom.
That's a great name.
It had amazing animations. Like they had like these crazy boss fights with like when the boss dies, it's like 200 frames of the boss just like getting eviscerated.
Awesome. Awesome. Something that strikes me about TowerFall is that everything is very, very intentional. Everything is very planned. And from what you're saying about the secrets that people really haven't stumbled upon, planned to an extent that people really don't even know yet. I'm curious, and Abley here in the chat is also curious. How do you feel about procedural generation? Did you consider that as an option to say, oh well, maybe if I just have the towers procedurally generated, that would provide a lot of variety? How do you feel about using procedural generation for a game?
Yeah, for TowerFall. I guess just in general, I just really like designing levels. I feel like level design is where I'm strongest. So I guess to do procedural generation, I would have to spend a lot of time really just figuring out the implications of that design-wise. But with level design, I already know what I want to do and where I want to go with it usually. So it's just sort of the path of least resistance, I guess. And like the game has like 120 versus levels. Like there's a lot of levels just because I love making them. Like I think it's obvious to anyone who plays it. I just love making levels. I've actually thought about, I think where procedural generation will work really well in TowerFall is in quest mode. Because you could generate the layout of the level and have it shift and have different enemies spawning. And that could create like a lot of cool scenarios just procedurally, I guess.
Do you think that there's any sort of risk when you go with procedural generation for, losing a losing that sort of crafted feel.
Yeah, I think in versus mode, it has the downside of it's going to be really hard to make sure all the levels are balanced but still interesting if they're procedural. Whereas in quest mode, it can be just kind of crazy and all over the place, and that'll just be fun. In versus, it would feel unfair a lot of times, I think.
For anyone who is just joining us today on Joystiq Streams, we are playing TowerFall, and TowerFall creator Matt Thorson is here with us today. Matt, you know, we were talking earlier. You said you used to play around with Game Maker when you were a kid. That you went to school for programming. What sort of drew you to games when you were young? What sparked your interest?
I think it was like it's hard for me to say because as long as I can remember, I've always been interested in them. But I'm pretty sure it was Nintendo. I'm pretty sure. Like I played Super Mario Bros. And then later Super Mario World, and they just like captured my imagination in a way where I just couldn't stop thinking about them, and couldn't stop thinking about the mechanics and I think it was originally level design actually, where I just kept thinking about and drawing like game spaces and different ways for like characters to get through them, to the point where when I got Game Maker, I just figured out a way to like get a player moving, and then I would just like design levels all day for it.
Hadjo Ben in the chat wants to know if there is an easy way to save a replay.
Yeah, on Steam, you can just right after the replay, you can hit like the L button on your controller, and it saves it as an animated GIF.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite features. And on PS4, it has like the PS4 sharing functionality. So you hit the share button, you can save a screenshot, or you can upload like a video. And if you do a video, you can like actually trim it to show however much or little gameplays you want. And you can do that in quest mode as well on PS4.
Jess, is this like your favorite game of all time because it has GIF generation built into it?
Dude, you have no idea how much that has bumped it up on my list, like so far. Yeah, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
It is. And right now, by the way, for everyone watching, I am playing the versus mode just to show off some of the variants. But I don't have another person here, so I'm just killing someone over and over again who can't fight back. But yeah, I love like some of these, like the bramble arrows, which made like the thorny bushes that kill you pop up everywhere. And these drill arrows are amazing. How many layers can they go through? Like it's like one at least. But...
Just one, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They go through the first wall they hit, and then they're a normal arrow pretty much.
Right, and they're awesome. So.
Matt, you were talking a little bit earlier about how sort of creating a broader single-player mode for TowerFall with an overworld and a story and all that stuff just sort of really wasn't working for you. What are some other things that you really thought would be great for the game, but once you implemented them, they just didn't work out?
Oh, there's a ton of variants I tried that never worked. I tried a lot of different... it's mostly single-player stuff. I tried a lot of different boss fights that were just not fun. It took a lot of time for me to figure out what's fun about this game. Which is, like, looking at the game, you don't see any of that, right?
No. Like, looking at it, you automatically think, like, oh, well, that's what's fun about it. What's fun about it is, you know, getting out of the way of an explosion, or you know, falling through the floor and automatically thinking this is what I'm going to do when I reappear at the top. Like all that stuff's readily apparent, but I can see how when you were in the midst of the creative process, that would seem it would be very, very difficult to see the forest for the trees. Yeah,
exactly. Like everything that's fun in the game is something I had to find, and it was a lot of it was. Took me a while to find. Like a lot of it was non-obvious, but now in retrospect it's so obvious. That's the funny part of game design.
Asian Steve in the chat we discussed earlier if there were any other platforms that you wanted to bring TowerFall to, and we talked specifically about consoles. And Agent Steve wants to know if there will be a Linux or Mac version anytime soon. Mostly because he needs to play with his coworkers at the office. Yeah, so I mean, obviously you've gotten the game on Steam, and it's a Windows game at this point. But you know, there's going to be the Linux-based Steam OS later this year. Is there any sort of plans for a Linux version?
Yeah, I really want to do, especially Mac. I really want to do Mac. Linux sounds cool to me too. I'm not sure when yet, just because I'm still dealing with stuff for like fixing bugs or like troubleshooting issues for people with the Steam version, that kind of thing. But basically, just because I'm a one-man team at this point. But yeah, I would love to do that.
Now this is I understand that this is a kind of ridiculous question, but I still love it. I love asking creators this question, especially ones who wear their stylistic loves on their sleeves, such as yourself. You're a man who loves like the quick satisfaction of an old arcade-style mechanic and pixel art. If there was any game from the past that somebody was going to hand to you and they said, you know, here it is, do with it as you will, make your own version of this, what would you want to make?
Oh man, I think a lot of my games are just that. Is me taking games I've loved and sort of simplifying them down to the part I loved about them. Like in this case, it's a lot of Smash Bros. Melees in this game. I think one game that inspires me a lot and always has is Yoshi's Island. And that would be a game, like to have the level editor for that game would be incredible. Like, yeah.
So why, like, what is it about Yoshi's Island that's just stuck with you?
Yeah, I think Yoshi's Island, it's probably like the most complicated Mario game in that there's like so much you can do. Like you're like running around, hovering, and then throwing eggs and like managing Mario on your back and that kind of thing. And it's just like when you get good at that game, it feels so good. You're like to pull off crazy trick shots with the eggs and stuff. It's just so cool.
It's so funny that you should bring that up. Our managing editor Susan Arndt, who just reviewed Yoshi's New Island for Joystiq.
Oh yeah.
She and I spent the morning talking about the new game and the original, and what I think both does so well, and what I think endures about that design 20 years later, is the fact that it sort of organically creates a difficulty slider.
Yeah.
You know, if you want, just getting to the end of a level is incredibly difficult all on its own. But if you want the game to be a little bit trickier, try to do it without losing any stars. Try to get all those red coins. Try to get all those different things.
Yeah.
Like how do you as a game designer approach difficulty like that? How do you try to find a way to say, like, here's what I'm going to make that's like really, really hard, but keep it accessible and make it more natural than like, here's easy mode and here's hard mode?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is in just having things that are fun to do but unnecessary. That sounds weird, but like in TowerFall quest mode, you can actually combo enemies. Like if you kill enemies within 2 seconds of each other or without touching the ground, you'll get a combo, and you get more points, and the sound effects get progressively more like congratulatory.
Man, I didn't notice that. How cool.
Yeah, I didn't want to like trouble new players with it, that knowledge. Like I don't want new players to worry about it.
Right.
But it's there for like, if you're good at the game, you can do that, and it just feels really good. You don't really need, like, you get more points for it, but you don't really even need that. Like players will just do it because it feels good.
Right? Like why? Every single time I see something that's like, we're adding experience points and like a complicated leveling up system. Yeah. Why isn't just doing something the reward? You know?
Yeah, I don't think there's enough focus on that, really. Just like the sensation of doing it being the reward. Yeah.
That's funny you should mention sound. Like sound just being like a thing that really, really reinforces how a game feels to you. Last night, I'm getting ready for bed, and my wife's sitting next to me, and she just hears this bleeping coming from my direction. And I was playing the new Ys game, the Ys role-playing game for Vita. And she's like, what are you doing? What is that repetitive sound? I was like, the menu sounds are so good. Perfect. Listen to that. Listen to the way it goes down an octave when you exit out of the menu. It's so good. And that stuff is just so satisfying to find.
It is.
Another really great question from Nix G here in the chat. What is the biggest thing you learned or the most important advice on designing a game from scratch that you discovered while making TowerFall?
Oh man, I think TowerFall is all about just trying to get out of the way of players. Like, there was a lot of stuff, like originally the first multiplayer prototype had lava chasing players up like a tower, and you were fighting each other as you were climbing. But it was fun and chaotic, but like the focus was on the platforming and like more on the level design and that kind of thing when players just wanted to interact with each other. And so it feels like another case of like just trying to get my ego out of it and like letting players be the focus instead of the game, you know?
A question for Jamage Arts. Jamage Arts asks, this is making me wonder, for trial mode in TowerFall, how did you go about finding the goal times for levels? Was it just a lot of testing? That sounds like another thing that really was probably an organic part of just making the game. How did you come upon those?
I set the diamond times first, which is the harder tier. I basically just tried to find my fastest time to do a level without using some like secret techniques that are really hardcore. I just used like the basic moveset pretty much and tried to find the fastest way I could do it and then add like 0.1 or 0.2 seconds to that. And then the gold times, that was more testing. It was just like, what would a slightly worse player, how much time would they spend doing this? And then there's actually a secret third tier, which is the dev times.
Oh man.
Oh man.
And for those, the Kevin Regami who did the sound effects, he's like a speedrunner. It's like what he does in his free time. And he just got like these insane times. I got him to give me like the best possible times for every level pretty much, and add like just a fraction of a second to them. And yeah.
Here's another really great question from Joe Ben here. We know that Nidhogg circulated among game competitions for months, maybe even years before releasing the game to the public. And that's an interesting example because Nidhogg, like this, is another local multiplayer-only game.
Yeah.
Did those multiplayer parties and competitions play a part in TowerFall's development?
Yeah, they played a huge part. Really similar to Nidhogg and Samurai Gun, I think, in that respect, where they would be, especially early on, it would be like a reason to work on the game, because I can't really, early on when TowerFall was all multiplayer, when I first prototyped multiplayer, there was like, I couldn't really test it. Like I could test it for bugs, but I couldn't really see if it was fun on my own. So it was all about just like getting friends together, going to meetups and stuff, and judging players' reactions and observing how they play the game. And I ended up using like local meetups at first, and they would be sort of like deadlines, like, oh, the meetup's on Saturday, so I want to add this, this, and this so I can test them. It's like a really good excuse to work on the game a lot. And then the meetup, like it went from local meetups to like, I would send it out to developer friends and they would have meetups, and then start getting invited to things like Evo and PAX, and it just sort of grew organically.
K-Pulv wants to know, Matt,
Kyle
with
Pulver.
all of the...
Hi.
Oh, Kyle Pulver.
Oh, yeah.
He's awesome.
Hey, Kyle.
He's a developer.
Yeah.
He's lovely.
He's a
Hi.
friend of mine, too, actually.
Yeah, he lives in Arizona.
Oh, cool.
God, you guys in your crazy hot states.
I know.
Well, Kyle's question is, with all of the variants, are you concerned at all about fragmenting TowerFall communities? Like if Group A likes to play with single shot, cursed bow, but Group B likes to play pure vanilla or symmetrical treasure. Wow, that is a lot of jargon.
But yeah, I was really worried about that in development. I actually took out some variants because they were fracturing the competitive community, but then players were really like upset that I took them out. So I tried to find another solution. And what I came up with was the game actually has a button that says like tournament rules. And if you click it, it puts on the variants that are meant that I think should be played during tournaments. And then I was free to put back in all the other variants because now the game explicitly tells you this is like the competitive rule set.
Ooh, and what is that, if you don't mind? If you have it.
Yeah, it's just no auto balance, symmetrical treasure. So the same treasure spawns on the left and right side of the level. And that's it for free for all. But if you're playing 1v1, there's also bottomless treasure, which is a single giant treasure chest spawns in the middle, and it just continuously spits out power-ups.
Okay.
And that's to make it so there's no stalemates, because whoever controls the middle of the level has an advantage.
Right. Interesting.
Now, I'm really, really curious, how you, like, that's a moment where you've made your baby. It's your baby. You made the game exactly how you want it to be. And so you put in this setting where you say, this is exactly how it's meant to be played. But then, especially with multiplayer games, you put it out there and people are going to play it however they're going to play it.
Yeah.
And how do you sort of leave yourself open for that discovery with players? How do you sit there and say to yourself, like, once this is out there, it can turn into something else, and I have no control over that. I'm wondering how you sort of disconnect yourself emotionally from your game,
right.
And also how do you sort of, as a designer, say, I need to recognize that there are things about this that I don't know.
Yeah, I think like even as I was making the game, it was sort of a constant process of understanding it. Like even after the game was already fun, I was still understanding why it was fun. And that's where all the experimentation comes in. And even after release, like I'm going to be seeing players play it. Like the competitive rule set that I put in might change if players convince me, right? And just seeing how players play it, I just gain more understanding about what's fun about it. And that'll come into play also when I add more content, because I'll gain more understanding. And it seems like at the point where I completely understand it, where I stop gaining understanding, that's where I would say, well, there's no point adding more content to this now because there's nothing more for me to learn.
Jess, I don't want to bring something up and then all of a sudden cause you an existential crisis, but GDC is next week.
That is scary.
GDC is coming. And Matt, I'm curious, what are your GDC plans, man? What do you got going on this year at the Game Developers Conference?
Yeah, I got a lot of meetings with people. I have some parties to go to, of course.
Always parties.
Yeah, TowerFall is actually in the IGF. It's nominated for Excellence in Design, so I'll be going to that, of course. And it is so exciting. There's a Netrunner tournament I want to play in.
Netrunner tournament? What is Netrunner?
Oh, Netrunner's
indicting myself and my gamer cred.
Netrunner's I guess it's like a collectible card game, sort of in the vein of Magic, except it takes place in like a dystopic future where one player is a hacker and the other player is like an evil corporation.
Cool.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's a really well-designed game.
We are edging up to the end of our stream today. There are just a few minutes to go. We have one more question from Hajo Ben here. Is there an easy way to share variants combo among friends?
Pretty much you just have to tell them like what variants you're using. You can save your variants like on your save file. You can have 3 presets, but there's no way to like share them with friends now.
I'm laughing at one of our regulars, Faux Ben, talking about needs somebody to teach him to play.
Yeah, it's a really complicated. Netrunner's a really complicated game.
Everybody who is just joining us or who has been with us from the beginning of today's stream, this is Joystiq Streams. We have been playing TowerFall, which was once an Ouya exclusive, but now no more. This is TowerFall Ascension, which is playable on Steam and PlayStation 4 at this exact moment.
On PS4, you actually have to search for it by name right now because the store's a bit broken. But
come on. Dang it, PSN, get it together. Joining us today has been Matt Thorson, the creator of TowerFall. Matt, is there anything you would like to tell the public before we go? Anything that they should know about TowerFall? Do you want to tease them some more with word about hidden things that are totally hard to find?
I think like there is a lot of single player stuff in the game. Like I tried to put that in just because local multiplayer is kind of a hard sell. But I think if you ever enjoyed local multiplayer games, I think it's worth giving them a shot again. Like this Samurai Gun and Nidhogg. It seems like there's a lot of reticence to like go back to that. But I think once you play a local multiplayer game again, you'll see why they're so good, you know?
You can punch the person who just killed you.
Exactly.
It's great, yeah.
Let me tell you, man, tomorrow night, Friday night, I'm having a party at my place, and I've got my second PlayStation 4 controller charging right now, and I'm going to stealth voice this game on people. They're going to be like, hey, man, what do you have to drink? I would be like, shut up and play this game with me. Because I've been waiting all week to play it.
Awesome.
Everybody at home, the individual who has been playing TowerFall and playing TowerFall well is our own Jessica Lynn Condit.
Hello.
And she is not a country singer. She is a spectacular reporter covering the video game industry for Joystiq.com. Alexander Slewinski, who has been hanging out in the chat with you, put up a link to Jess's review of TowerFall. Jess, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share about TowerFall?
Basically, it is all regarding local multiplayer, man. Give it a shot because it's worth it. If your friends all have USB controllers of their own, tell them to bring them and play this game. Find a way to play with your friends.
Man, that is good advice.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is Anthony John Agnello. I am Joystiq's community manager, and you can find me pretty much every single Tuesday and Thursday right here on twitch.tv/Joystiq. That is when we broadcast Joystiq Streams. And, sometimes we're just playing games that we like a whole lot and think are cool. Like one time we played Echo the Dolphin on Sega CD, because why not? And other times we have developers just like Mr. Thorson here come and talk to us about their games. We've got some very exciting stuff coming up at the end of March. Alexander and myself are going to be joined by the developers of Dungeon Defenders 2 on Tuesday, March 25th. After that, we're on March 27th, we're going to have the folks from Yacht Club Games joining us for a session with Shovel Knight, which is a really sick-looking pixel art platformer with sort of Metroid-style exploration, and it looks like the hotness. Next week, on Tuesday is a little bit of variant. Check twitter.com/joystiq on Tuesday to know what we're streaming that day. However, if you do want to know what we're streaming next Thursday, March 20th, that's going to be Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. I will be playing that, and I will be playing it having never played it at all before. It's one of our blind streams. I plan on trying it out, as though Solid Snake is incredibly lonely and just wants a friend. He's going to walk up to guards, and that's probably not the way you're supposed to do it, but we're going to do it anyway. You can follow us on Facebook as well as Twitter. It's facebook.com/Joystiq. You can find us on Google Plus if you're a Google Pluser. You can find us at joystiq.com every single day, where we publish all kinds of reviews and previews and news and good stuff to read. And you can also go to iTunes and check out the Super Joystiq podcast. We've got a humdinger for you tomorrow where we pick apart Titanfall to an insane degree. Matt, thank you again for joining us. This has been a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun.
And hopefully you will come back and hang out with us again in the future. Sure. When TowerFall is available on other myriad things. Not really. I'm not forcing you to say anything. Jess, thank you again for playing. It is, as always, awesome to see your skills.
My pleasure.
And
My pleasure.
Yeah, everybody tune in.
Yeah, you did really well.
Thank you. Ooh, high praise.
Tune in next week. All kinds of crazy GDC coverage, y'all. Until then, we're just going to be playing TowerFall on our own. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out.
Bye.